Yeah, so my name is Matthew. I am the founder of a mental health and wellbeing charity that goes by the name of Tidy Butt, based up in Torfaen, Pontypool. So our men's circle is basically a group of guys that meet up every week, 1 week on a Tuesday, 1 week on a Wednesday. We are just trying to create the conditions, a space for men to be able to come along, open up, be vulnerable, to share some of their challenges that they are going through or been through, but also just a space for men to connect, to communicate, to also make friends, build relationships. So it's not all about our vulnerability. I think a lot of guys as well can come along to build friendships, have that sense of community and that sense of belonging, really. Some of the most impactful conversations that I've had have been in men's circles is peer support, right? It's through other guys that have been through similar situations that can relate. You see a lot of men understand, like, through vulnerability and sharing their story or listening to others, they realise that they're not the only one going through that kind of stuff. So, yeah, peer support has been super impactful. It's not run by a professional, so we've got our own facilitators that have also been through our stages there at Tidy Butt, so community events or counselling, etc., and as a result wanted to give a little bit back so everybody can kind of relate to what's going on within the group. When we talk about men's circles, men's groups, it can come in many different forms. I think it's just creating the conditions for men to be comfortable, whether that's sat in a circle, sharing vulnerabilities, whether it's walking a mountain, whether it's in the sauna, whether it's music, baking, art, whatever that is. I think it's really important to create the conditions for men to be able to share, to listen, to create connections, to build relationships, friendships, etc. And I think as a result of creating them conditions, men become more trusting, they become more open and start sharing some of the things that they're going through. So I don't necessarily feel it's just a circle of men that come and sit down and share their deepest, darkest secrets or their vulnerabilities. I think it comes in many, many different forms. I've been approached by lots of people saying, I want to start a group, or can you give me some support in starting a group? And the one thing I'm totally honest with right at the outset is how difficult it can be. I think for some facilitators, turning up at a group for the first time with all good intentions, you may have a group of guys, for instance, one talking about suicide, the other one talking about some challenging behaviours that they may be facing or going through, some talking about self-harm, some about drink, drugs, etc. So it can be a really challenging space to hold for people. Another thing as well, I think, is that as a facilitator or as a space holder, you haven't got to have all the answers. You haven't got to be an expert in your field. You've just got to be able to create the conditions for people to be able to share and be vulnerable and feel supported in that role. So yeah, one thing I think for a lot of people is that they feel like they need to respond to every share, or they need to have a suggestion or an answer for somebody. And that's not the case. Through some of the most difficult shares in our men's circle, we'll literally thank people for being vulnerable, thank them for sharing, and then we'll move on to the next one. So yeah, it's very, very difficult, I think, to hold space and to create a really thriving men's circle, but it's such a rewarding thing to do as well. As a group, we realise that difficult things and sensitive topics are being spoken about, and also as a result, I think a lot of facilitators tends to take on this burden as well and check in regularly with people if they're sharing certain experience, etc. So I think it was really important for us, although we didn't do it to start with because we wasn't aware of the impact that some of this could have. It was really important for us to then sort out some kind of group supervision and one-to-one offering. For if somebody does require to offload, it hasn't got to be me, it hasn't got to be somebody else within the group. It can be somebody that has nothing to do with it, somebody who's a professional that can share their own experiences, etc. with them. I think that is a really good idea. If you are setting up a group, maybe not necessarily to begin with, see how the land lies, see what kind of things people are speaking about, see what kind of challenges that people are going through, but also as a facilitator or as a space holder, having the opportunity to be able to offload and share some of your experiences within the group as well. Yeah, I think consistency is the key. When myself and co-founder Reese first decided that we wanted to set up a men's circle, we turned up on our own for weeks and weeks without anybody turning up. So I think consistency is the key. Just allowing people to know that the space is happening every week, We have had periods where we've had to cancel because we've had a facilitator ill, etc., etc. But if you can be as consistent as possible, I think that is definitely important. Don't take it personal if nobody's turning up. I think people want to see it regularly. They're going to see it posted on your social media. They're going to potentially hear about somebody else through word of mouth, etc. have come and experienced it and had a good experience. And then as a result, they may start showing up themselves. But please don't take it personal. Be consistent so people know that is happening regularly, and you will definitely have people showing up as a result. So just getting it in front of people, in front of people's eyes over a period of time, like so many people is watching and you don't even think they're watching. So just that one time that some guys are thinking, do you know what, I'm going to show up tonight, and they might not know that is on, or they might turn up and see the shutters down or the door not open or whatever. So it's really, really important to be consistent, continuing to share it, whether it's via email, newsletter, social media, word of mouth, however that looks for you. But be consistent with your marketing and don't take it personal, because eventually people will turn up for sure. So yeah, also I think you are going to need to have thick skin, because there's always going to be somebody that's not happy. I think the more people that turn up to these kind of groups, more people are going to have an opinion on how they should run, how they should look, what you should do, times, dates, etc. There's always going to be someone with an opinion, right? So please have thick skin. Don't take anything personal, and I'm sure it'll work itself out in the long run. Yeah, of course, you're going to have people turning up to these groups from all different backgrounds, right? So the one thing that I realized early doors is that you're not going to be able to please everyone, and there may be a time as a facilitator or an organizer of the group that you may have to have some kind of challenging conversation or difficult conversation with an individual. But I think that's really important, because sometimes you can have one difficult individual within a group, which is upsetting the whole group. So you've got to think of the whole group as rather than the individual, unfortunately. So in my own experience, I think it's really important to have difficult conversations if they arise. Instead of papering over the cracks, having a challenging conversation in the begin with, which is only going to benefit the group as a whole. I think it's so important that you have downtime and cut off from everything as well. It's something that I learned through personal experience, through not having that and realizing how important it really was. So as a facilitator or as an organizer of a men's group, you could be receiving messages out of group time. You could be receiving messages on the weekend. Some of these messages could be really challenging. It's about accepting the fact that you can't always control other people's decisions, right? I turn my phone off now of an evening, 9:30. I don't turn it back on until the morning. Sometimes I have really challenging messages to deal with, but I'll deal with them the next day, because unfortunately, we're not a 24-hour service and I can't give everything to everyone at all times. And I think it's really important that we realize that. There is some other amazing services out there that are 24 hours, like the Samaritans, etc. So one thing that I compiled early doors was an emergency contact list. And then if somebody sent a message to me that potentially was challenging for them guys, or they was at risk, I would send them the emergency contact list, and then I would pick it back up the following day. So yeah, there may be a time where you've got to have a moderator for your WhatsApp groups, because I think it's important to be able to communicate with the guys. If you can offload that to somebody, that would be fantastic within the group that knows what's going on. Obviously, you've got websites, potential registration forms, or keeping numbers, etc. for people turning up or whatever. So there's quite a bit of admin involved. So if you can get some kind of admin support from the beginning, that would definitely lighten the burden. So when we first started the group, we kind of financed everything ourselves, and it was local community centre fees, teas, coffees, biscuits, etc., fuel. So yeah, it can add up. So yeah, my suggestion to you would be, one, are you in the financial position to be able to do that? Is there any free spaces, churches, community centres, coffee shops where you can meet, which will lighten the burden? Because if you don't have that in place, there could be some financial implications. Although it may not be a great deal, but over time it certainly will add up. We've talked about some of the challenges, right, about starting a group, but I think it's so impactful to see some of the guys that is now coming to the group, and the changes they've made within their life is fantastic. From guys coming to the group and not being able to open up about some of their emotions, feelings, etc., being vulnerable, to now being facilitators and being able to share with the group some of their deepest, darkest secrets, and some of the challenges that they've been through is immense. Also guys that have potentially come to the group and then accessed professional counselling services as a result, and the impact that has had, but also some of the changes that men have made within their life, whether it be drugs, alcohol, whether it's just finding community, whether it's having friendships and building relationships, and watching people thrive as a result of that is amazing. Yeah, we've got a real passion for it. I think if you didn't have a passion for it, you wouldn't be in it. I think it's one of them things. It can be super difficult at times because there is such sensitive things being spoken about, and it does take up a lot of your time. But when you see some of the results, is super impactful, is amazing.